Awesome.
We are live.
Awesome, guys. I think it's time for our intro. Introduction playing now. There we go, guys. We did it.
Welcome, everyone, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter!
Easter! Happy... Oh, Jay! How festive. How festive of you today, Jay. Are we going to be performing today in your bunny character? I think you should. It's very festive for us.
Look how cute I look.
You look adorable.
Very cute.
Gotta turn my volume down. There we go.
You look adorable.
Don't I?
Yes.
Okay,
I like the heart nose.
Yeah. I can't see it because I'm near. I can't see very close, so I'm going to trust you that I look okay with the heart on the end of my nose like that.
It's super cute. I'm really into it. So I think today, let's maybe we should just introduce ourselves again. A little bit of a round robin here of who we are. Just a quick intro. Who wants to start?
We have more viewers coming in. I'm Natasha Lowe. I am the owner of Coyote Canine Dog Training, and we do mostly behavior modification at Coyote Canine. And I'll pass it off to Jay.
I'm Jay. I work for that person at the top of the screen, Natasha Lowe. And yeah. I mean, Tash just kind of summed up what we do, so.
So I'm Jessica O'Neill, and I am a canine behavior consultant as well. I own Pet Intel. I work with an amazing group of people with Pet Intel. I also own the Canine Habitat, where we do behavior rehabilitation and boarding and board and trains and rescue rehabilitation. And I owned Jaywalker dog products, so I invented the harness, and we manufacture and sell Jaywalker. So that's who we are, and we geek out together.
Yep.
So I think it's like super important for viewers to understand that, you know, canine behavior, there's many ways that you can resolve behavior or work on training exercises, but it is really a language. Canine behavior is a language that when you start to really break it down and pay attention to it, it's a really interesting language, and it's also something that you're constantly learning. So none of us feel like we know everything. Would that be safe to say?
Speak for yourself.
Oh, come on, Jay. So none of us feel like we know everything. We also wanted to share and geek out with the public and share and get people starting to like really tune in to some of the little minute things that dogs are doing that might help tell a little bit of a story, right? So today, what are we looking at, guys?
Looking at some anxiety forms today. We know we've been isolated for the last few weeks, and we wanted to touch base on some behaviors that the dogs might start developing over this time if we don't, focus on it or address it at this time. So, I'll let you guys.
So I'm going to put our video for today up on the screen, and we're going to play it through. So you'll see, again, this is another video that we have found on YouTube, and I want to just point out that some of these videos that we're looking for really help us to pinpoint a specific topic. So obviously Hank doesn't like to be on his own. He normally has the company of his humans. Yeah. this gentleman has done a little video for us of how Hank responds when he leaves for 10 minutes. And I have to tell you guys, I played this earlier for about 5 seconds, and my coonhound went bananas. So he's
song of his people.
So he's coonhound is up in the bedroom right now, so he doesn't interrupt our live. Oh boy, that's so dramatic, very dramatic. Poe, don't you get into it. So we see, obviously, we've got a dog here who's wondering where his owners went. And
yeah,
his
he's
head back.
Anxious state of mind. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So he's throwing his head back in quite a fuss there. I think there's a little, obviously there's a time lapse because it's not a 10-minute video. So his owner's going to arrive back home. And there we have it. And then he says he pities the neighbors. So, so there we have the video. And I'm going to pause it now because now we're just getting into some weird stuff there. Okay. So, so we have Hank, who is obviously having a little bit of a meltdown about what's going on, and I think it points out some of the things that we talked about. We've all been sort of talking about how we have to maybe be a little bit cautious, right? Of how we treat our dogs during this time of isolation. So, if you guys want to speak up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it all depends on, well, there's lots of stuff going on, and I think you can take the discussion in a variety of different directions. You could go down the avenue of separation anxiety. You can go down the avenue of maybe, I don't know, like maybe this dog has confinement phobia, and this dog, you know, this is the worst of two evils. Either the dog destroys a crate, potentially hurts itself, or it whines at the door. So there's probably a bunch of rabbit holes you could go down, but certainly the more that the looser the structure becomes, the more time that we spend with our dogs. To be honest, I see it happening with my own pack. Some unwanted behaviors tend to creep in, and I think outside of the structure that, you know, the parameters that we put around. So I hate the word structure because it sounds so militant.
Structured.
And that's not, that's just not the way that I like to necessarily operate with my dogs. I want free thinkers. So I want them making good choices, not just relying necessarily on obedience. Do as I say now, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's probably some time for that, but you start to see when, I think that by just through our nature of not wanting to feel remorse or guilt for creating a dog while we're home, people will tend to loosen up that structure a little bit and give potentially, I don't know, I guess a little more freedom. And we can see, but I'm not exactly sure what this guy is necessarily doing with this dog or what his daily routine is. But I think the point of that video is, you do this, you could be setting yourself up for this.
Yeah.
And like, so for this guy, he's, it's unfortunate that he cut the video and spliced it together. I would have liked to have seen the in-between, because the in-between would certainly tell me something of value. And so that's, I mean, we don't have that. Hindsight's 20/20, and had we had that, maybe we might be having a different discussion. But nevertheless, I still think that some of the things that, in a situation like we're in the climate that we're in, we tend to put a lot of emotions on our dogs and tend to take a lot from our dogs, and we end up in these situations where we have unwanted behaviors like this. And I bet you $50 to a donut that this guy doesn't really care that much, because he would have done something about it already, or he's not going to care until something happens. The dog jumps up and nails him in the mouth by accident. The dog jumps up on somebody else and scratches the hell out of their back. And that sort of thing.
I think a lot of the things that you just said there, Jay, there were a couple of things that I wanted to maybe clarify for the viewers, because you're talking about confinement issues, like some solitude issues. And for me, I want to break that down because I see two different things that manifest. I see issues with solitude, so the difficulties that dogs have from being alone. And then I also see difficulties with confinement. So to me, those are two very different things that are happening in the dog's mind. So one is, I don't know how to be by myself. So whether it's a specific attachment to a specific person, which we kind of tend to call separation anxiety, but really it's about being solitude, about being alone. And then we have confinement issues. So then there's dogs who are fine to be alone, but they can't be confined, so in a crate or put in a room. So those are two different things to me. And sometimes if you hit the nail on the head, you get both. You get a dog who doesn't like to be alone and they can't be confined. So then you end up having like this real storm of behaviors that manifest because of both things. So this dog to me is demonstrating that he has some solitude issues, meaning that he probably doesn't spend a lot of time by himself. And this is something that really concerns me for my clients now and just the population in general, because none of our dogs are really spending any time alone. So they're not really remembering or learning or practicing how to be by themselves. And so that's one element that I think is really, really important. And then the other part of this is confinement stuff. And with confinement stuff, that's again, it's a practiced behavior. So if you're the type of person who typically crated your dog to go to work for the day or put them in a room or behind a gate, and now you're home all the time, you might start to see that not only do they have confinement issues when you go away, but now they also have solitude issues, and you've compounded the problem.
Yeah, you start building more of a dependency, right? So you're at this point, we're home all day, and whether the dog be at our feet 24/7 or we're walking the dog every hour, they've started to lose that independency. Especially when you're talking about solitude, it's like, well, you're here all the time. So when we go back to work for 8 hours a day or whatever the time is, the dog's going, well, wait a second, you used to be here all day. And now we're starting to see more dependency issues and leading into anxiety and that type of behavior.
Yeah, I think confinement phobia. I don't see a ton of dogs with confinement phobia, and for me, if it's like you said, it's a completely different thing. I think a dog either has confinement phobia or it doesn't. I haven't seen a lot of dogs that meshes together, and I haven't seen a ton of dogs with confinement phobia. This particular case, though, again, we don't have the entire picture there. And yeah, we're spending a bunch of times with our dogs, and they're not spending alone time. So Jess, you said they're not learning or practicing, and I'm going to add in there, if they're not practicing, if that is a skill that they're not continuing to maintain, that for me means that they're beginning to unlearn it. It's going into extinction. And that's really, really problematic, because what people don't necessarily understand is they may be taking a young adult or an adult dog when we do return. And look, I mean, not to go down that rabbit hole too much, but we're looking, I think, at a long time before things are sort of loosened up and we see potentially going back to a world that we were. So let's just put a time frame on it and say it's 6 months or a year. Well, you've got a dog who's no longer practicing, as you said, solitude. And for me, the way that I define that solitude is the dog just can't exist outside or in the void of your absence. It's making either poor choices or it's so damn stressed out, it's losing not necessarily losing its mind, but it's certainly having trouble with you not being around and existing in that void. And so if we don't maintain that, I think later on in 6 months or a year, we're going to be dealing with an adult dog who potentially would have to start all over again. in sort of crating. And for me, that poses a whole other bag of trouble because, you know, the older we get, the more set in our ways we become.
Mm-hmm.
And you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Absolutely.
But it takes a lot longer. I mean, we know if we, I mean, not to go too far down the
if you say rabbit hole
functions
again,
of the
you're going to
brain,
have to wear your rabbit suit.
You know, a puppy brain is super malleable.
Yes.
A 6-year-old or a 5-year-old dog's brain still malleable, but not quite as easy. It's like, I guess the difference. I don't really have a good example, but you know, it's not.
Well,
it's like
I would like
like,
to jump in here because I think what you're talking about is. So what I see though is, you know, we're talking about repetition of practice. So we know practice makes perfect. So if you've been practicing something for 5 years or 6 years versus 2 months, you're going to have that behavior fairly deeply ingrained. And the amount of repetitions that and practice you need to have in the opposite way is more. So just by like simple numbers, what you're describing is like, you know, if you're 8 years old and you have been practicing jumping up on your human every time they come home for 8 years, and every time you've done that, it's been reinforced. You have a huge sense of relief. Oh my God, they're home again. And you're very excited and they are interacting with you. If you land in a home or even your owners decide, okay, we're not going to do this anymore, and they stop, what you're going to see is that extinction burst that you were talking about. You're now putting that behavior on extinction. You're now saying, this is no longer going to work. Well, the dog has been told 1,000, 1,000,000 times that it does work. And it's a deeply ingrained behavior that they have practiced. They're going to up the ante. So you mentioned extinction, and I wanted to touch on that because extinction burst, in my opinion, is a fancy term for tantrum. But it is a demonstration of the dog's intellect to a certain degree because they're saying, this has worked before many times. I must not be explaining it clearly. So instead of now just putting my paws up on you, I'm going to jump, I'm going to bark. Maybe now they're going to grab. Maybe now you're going to see an extinction burst. You're going to see an escalation in behavior before the behavior starts to go away. And the difficult thing about this, and I'll talk about this because I also feel like a lot of people, even if they watch this live today and go, oh man, for 4 weeks I haven't been doing this, I'm going to start now, is your dog might have a tantrum. They may have an extinction burst. What's super important is that you don't reward the burst. Because if you reward the burst and you go, oh my God, I can't do this. He's been in his crate for 10 minutes and he's slowly gotten worse and worse and worse, and now he's biting the bars, or now he's barking, or, you know, and I need to go make a conference call, and you say, oh, screw it, and you open the cage door, or you go ahead and say, stop that. And if you do that, you've now said, the dog goes, oh, bingo, that's what I need to do, get the attention now. Yeah. Now, in order to get out of my crate, I need to scratch and bark and pant and pace. Now, to get your attention when you walk in the door, I need to try and grab the bun on the top of your head. So I just want to really point out that as much as we're saying, you know, you need to really get through this, be ready. Because when you decide to go back and say, okay, made the mistake of letting go of those things, your dog might have a little bit of a backlash on that because now we've had this practice, this new practice of behaviors. Would you agree with that, Tash?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to add that yes, it goes into extinction, but your, for example, crating behavior is still there, right? So yes, you're going to see these outbursts, but pushing through it, your crate behavior is still there. So you can continue with your repetition and being, on top of it. It will come back, right? So you're not going to be sitting there going, yeah, oh man, it's happening. I gotta let the dog out of the crate. Push through it.
Push through
it.
That's
my.
Yeah, I think for me, it's important for the people to understand that so long as they put a solid crate skill or solitude skill in place, you can always go dig that up if it gets buried.
Yeah.
So like, don't lose hope about it. It's going to be kind of shitty to push through, and people typically feel really bad. But the skill is still there. It's a matter of, you know, it's like playing a game or swimming or playing a sport that you used to play as a kid. You gave it up for a bit, and then you started again. And the first thing out of most people's mouths is, "Man, I'm pretty rusty." And so,
out of shape.
So the same thing kind of, and it doesn't matter the age, by the way. Okay. Okay, I'm rusty at some things, and I'm pretty damn still good at other things. So the point is that the dog can, that the skill can become a little bit rusty, but it's still there. It just needs to be worked through. It needs a bit of it just needs to be worked through. Like you said, Tash, push through. But you know what, this particular guy, there's a couple other things that we could go to, and that I think might be important here is that this guy probably doesn't even understand that he could be cueing this behavior by something that he's putting in place at a particular time, every single time, and the dog goes, "You're leaving."
Yeah.
And it gives a lapse of time before the guy actually exits the door for the dog to anticipate him leaving. And instead of going, "Oh, all right, I'm cool," the dog's like, "You're leaving. Oh man, you're leaving. You're leaving? Where are you coming? Where are you coming back?" And it's like a clingy, jealous girlfriend. It's just like, dude, relax, man. So he could be putting behaviors, and we could be putting behaviors on cue that are making it, one, reinforcing that behavior, and second, making it way harder. It's putting something in place that's going to work against us.
Well, and
yeah, I definitely.
Sorry, Tash, go ahead.
No, just touching base on Jay. You know, I've talked about it before with clients. It's like, well, what are you doing previous to yourself leaving? Right, grabbing the same keys, wearing the same jacket. You know, all these different types of behavior. That, again, what Jay was just saying. He's going, you know, dog, getting ready for you to leave. Right. So by picking out and realizing the different behaviors that you're doing could also be reinforcing to the dog. So by realizing that, you can start to work out the anxiety.
Yeah, and I thought it was so interesting. I'm not. You have a little bit of a lag there, Tash. So I'm trying to I'm trying to make sure that I'm not interrupting too much. But I just wanted to say that you know, with what Jay was talking about cueing the behavior to start. That's a really important thing. So what can people do? Change up their routine, not make a big deal about the fact that you're leaving, do lots of practice where you leave and come back. But I wanted to point out, and I'm going to bring up the freeze frame that we discussed about what this gentleman does when he comes home. Because also remember this, if the dog's motive at this point when he's left, the dog wants nothing more than for that human to walk back through the door. So when that human walks back through the door, whether you want to or not, there's already a massive reward. Your presence is already incredibly rewarding. And unfortunately, in this case, that coming back has now reinforced all of those chaining of behaviors that he's done, the baying, the howling, and all of this stuff that leads up to the owner coming home. But what the owner does when he enters the door is he adds in now, on top of just his physical presence, he also adds in this excitement and adrenaline that is accompanied, right? With like, hi, buddy. So there's like a massive sigh of relief that the guy's actually walked in the door. And then on top of that, there's this added excitement that he puts in there, right? So I just want to bring that video up to that point where he kind of comes in the front door and goes, "Oh, I'm here," and the relief that this dog has, and it instantly just jumps right on this guy. And before he even walks in the door, the guy's saying to him, "I'm back, buddy. It's okay. The world's now not over anymore." And you can see he's just got this huge smile. The dog is so excited. So I think that can sometimes exasperate the issue. So it's immediately hands-on, cuddles, and touching. Do you guys want to speak to that?
Reinforcing the excitement.
Yeah, I'm just
He's
waiting.
Going like, dog's going, where's the fire, right? Like, oh. Thanks for taking like all that excitement.
Yeah, so there's a huge...
Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine, Tash. When I initially watched the video, I didn't see the guy's facial expression because it seems to be blurred.
It is, yeah.
Did you blur that? Jessica?
Oh, I did not. No, it's just the videos like that.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, it's tough. It's tough to see this guy's face, and I don't necessarily think that he's enjoying this interaction when he comes in. I think he's literally trying to get, just not trying to get hammered in the face by a muzzle or a tongue. I recognize that he puts his hand on the dog. I see that stuff, and maybe we can touch on this for a quick sec, and that is, it's very difficult to stop a dog from doing a behavior you don't like with your hands and not endorse it.
Ooh, this is my favorite.
We just got a comment here.
I said, this is my favorite. I love talking about taking monkey arms out of the equation.
Yeah, so...
we just got a comment here.
Oh, we've got a comment, okay.
The human's body language being hunched over welcomes the behavior. So just an observation from one of our viewers. And
I think that's a great observation, because I've just frozen the video right there, and I see that even as the guy is looking at him through the window, the dog makes eye contact with him, he makes eye contact with the dog, and then he opens the door and he's talking to him like, oh buddy, hi, I'm here. And then you're right, viewer, that he immediately sort of engages, he hunches right over and engages with the dog. And it's hard to criticize. It is not supposed to be a criticism, because, we love our dogs. And we are just as excited to see them when we get home, especially in this climate where we've had to venture out into the scary world with our masks and our gloves. And we come home and we're like, oh man, I'm home. You're every bit as happy and excited to see that dog as he is to see you. So it's quite human nature. We know we actually get a burst of serotonin from interacting with that dog. So it is going against your visceral grain to not engage when you walked in the door like that. And I completely understand that. So I think for me, it's really about communicating to the person that I might be working with that it's just not helping the situation, and it's not worth that 5 seconds of celebration, of extreme adrenaline and celebration, for the amount of stress and turmoil the dog is experiencing the whole time you're gone. Because you go out and you're able to get past it. I'm out in the world. You're not going out in the world going, oh my God, I miss my dog. You're out doing things, but the whole time the dog is like, is he coming home? Is he coming home? Is he coming home? Is he there yet? No. Okay, I'm going to check the other window. No, he's not there. Okay. And then you see that escalation. So the stress that the dog has to experience by not understanding or not being okay with the fact that you're gone, and how much this interaction reinforces that stress, is not worth it.
Yeah, as much as it feels good for our humans, we think of the mental state of the dog. Mm-hmm. Right? The dog is stressed. We don't want to be enforcing that. So, like you touch base on it, yeah, I'm excited to come home and see my guys, but these, they're not excited to see me anymore because I've ignored them coming in, right? I haven't enforced that behavior. So things that, some people might be asking who's watching, what can we do not to get this behavior and to be reinforcing the behavior? Some of the things I do is just come in, do your thing, ignore your dog, right? Take your jacket off, go put your keys down. When your dog's in a better state of mind, then go interact with your dog.
Yeah. So do you find, Tash, that you get questions about things like, well, I come home, my dog has to pee. I have to interact with my dog. My dog has to pee. I get that question a lot. How would you handle that?
I personally would still ignore the dog until they're in a better state of mind. Just because you've been gone for 8 hours, an extra 15 minutes isn't going to make their bladder burst.
So I will tell you from my perspective, sometimes it does, because it's just seeing you already gives them like, and then, especially if you're talking about a dog who has, for whatever reason, a puppy or an older dog who has some bladder issues. So my advice to people is typically this goes back to what Jay was starting to talk about body blocking that I got really excited about. And that is, there's a number of ways to communicate with your dog. And there's ways to communicate with your dog that are calm and relaxed. And there are ways to communicate with your dog that will add to the adrenaline. So if you have a dog in a crate or in your house or behind a gate, and you walk in the door and you're like, I know he has to pee, and as soon as he sees me, I literally, no emotion, calm. I don't walk quickly. I don't do any really exaggerated movements, and I will like frog march the dog to the door and let them into the backyard, or if they have to go on a leash, and just hold the leash, and I'm not adding anything to the equation. It's literally about just release yourself. And if they have to go into the backyard, now we have the opportunity to get them to calm down before they work them way back into the house at all. So I tend to say
it's energy on the handler's part, right?
You got it.
Yeah, so I have six dogs, 3 of them German Shepherds, so that's like having double German Shepherds. It's like having 2 dogs. I mean, they're so adrenalized. I mean, Tash, Coda, you have Coda, and I mean, I don't know if he's classified as a senior guy yet, but how old is Coda?
6.
6, yeah. So he's
Neptune's 12, but he's definitely not a senior either.
Yeah, I know, and so I mean, my shepherds are still pretty young. Aspen is just a little over a year. Kai is a little over 2, and Annabelle is 3, and they're pretty spry. And they all love to work, and so the point is that they're pretty adrenalized. They're high, a little higher drive than, say my Hound Ruby or my Cavalier Sadie or my Go with the Flow Golden Riley. Mm-hmm. So I think the point that I'm making is that I'm hard pressed to tell people to ignore, because I think it's very difficult, and I find that depending on the advice that we give them, it can make the equation a little more difficult. I come in, my dogs are excited, but I've taught them all as puppies, except for Ruby. Actually, that's not true. My 3 shepherds are handler owner surrenders. Annabelle was a puppy, so you could say that I've had her as a puppy. Kai and Aspen. Well, Aspen is recent, and Kai was 7 months or 8 months or so, or something like that. I can't remember. Riley was a puppy. Sadie was a puppy, and Ruby was a 5 or 6 year old hound mix already. So I couldn't say that I did them all from puppies. But what I've taught, and I would encourage people to do with their puppies, if not start now, is I've taught them that you can be excited to see me. Like, it's an emotional high. I think the dogs benefit from that, and certainly I benefit from that, especially when I've had a crappy day and I see 6 little faces, coming up and going, "Oh, we're so happy to see you," right? And I'm like, "But I'm so happy you too." And all they want to do is like eat me. So yeah, sorry, I'll just get rid of this real quick. Anyway, so it's like I gotta get rid of that damn thing. Wait, it's got there. I think it's done. So I enjoy the interaction with my dogs. All I do is put some parameters around that. You can come around, and man, you can come running if you want, but here's what you can't do. You can't jump on me. You can't nip at my hands because you're using your mouth because you're so excited. That's not cool. You can come and see me. I'm thrilled to bits to see you. But it's got to be more, I guess, an acceptable level of happiness, if that makes sense, or an appropriate level of happiness, that you're not so happy you're making dumb choices.
Well, on top
so
of that,
for
Jay,
me,
though, you're
my
also
dog-
talking about dogs who are fairly balanced throughout the day. So
Well,
I think there's a difference. Your dogs are happy to see you, but they're not all day going, I can't live without Jay. You know, they're not doing that. So I think a lot of the time when we're teaching this, though, a lot of people go, well, when can I relax on some of these things? So for me, like in this discussion, we're obviously looking at a dog who has a problem. He has a problem. So in order to fix the problem, we may have to be really consistent in one direction for a period of time until the dog starts to balance out. And then I love what you're saying, because I mean, that's beautiful. That's what we all want. We want to be able to say, hey guys, I'm home. But there's and you've already established with your pack some rules around that, about being respectful of your personal space and about being not going over the top. Don't redirect to your brother or sister. Don't get too excited that you can't think. And probably you're also watching that. And when you see that those dogs are starting maybe to go to that point, you're probably disengaging. Like, all right, guys, that's enough. Let's take a break. I'm happy to see you too, but we're going to take a break, right?
Well, yeah. So I'll just clarify that. I don't give. For me, it's a quick hello. It's in and out. So it's a spike and then it's gone. I don't consistently reinforce that. I'm happy to see you. It's like, I'm happy to see you. It's like, I'm happy to see you too. Okay, beat it. I got to take off my boots. I got to take off my jacket. I'm saying that in the sense, it's like, okay, I've put parameters around it, so I don't let that escalate to a degree that it's going to bite me in the ass a little bit later on.
Literally or figuratively.
Yeah, especially with words. So yeah, I still think that this guy in the video, though, he could still strike a happy balance.
Yep.
And for me, I think a lot of people, the advice a lot of people get is turn off all the affection. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm going to suggest that that's not necessarily something that I do often, because I think it can create more of a problem for you.
Well, I don't think you ever should turn off all the affection to your dog, but I think that there's a difference between turning off affection and using your powers for good rather than evil.
Yeah.
So I think, we know that a lot of our dogs, not all of them, but a lot of them are driven by social interaction with you, physical contact, physical interaction, verbal interaction, and even eye contact can be rewarding from the owner to the dog. And so for me, I'm less focused on, is the dog sitting? Is the dog lying down? Is he in place? I'm more focused on, where is he up here?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be using my powers of affection and interaction and to reinforce a state of mind that's not good. So it's not saying that your dog can't be happy, but there's that balance on a thinking scale between being happy and being like impulsive and reactive and not making good choices. And that's the distinction that you were talking about there, Jay. You're like, okay, well, they can be happy to see me, but they can't be off their rocker. So there's a difference. And then I also see it's really important to give dogs outlets for some of those feelings. Like I have an American Bulldog, who's usually sleeping on the couch here beside me, and he has learned that he goes and finds an object, and he actually holds it in his mouth, and he does a couple of laps.
Yeah.
you know, and he's learned that. Like, he's still excited, but it's like, that's not the energy that you, like, you can't put that on me. So, you know, you do a few laps with your toy, and when you've come down a bit, then I'm happy to have a good, like, cuddle with you and find out how your day was. But I think that there's a difference there mentally, and it's not about sit, stay. That also concerns me, that a lot of people will come in and they'll get, okay, you sit, and their dog sits, but they're like this, ah, I'm sitting, and they're like, oh,
And it
you did
makes
such
more
a good
sense.
job,
Yeah.
and they reward that. So you know, it's about what's happening in here, right? So even if you tell your dog to sit and think, oh, well, I've done it, you know, he's not jumping up anymore, he's sitting, I'm going to reward that. You could still be rewarding an unstable mind.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of the stuff gets a little bit conflicting for most people, especially people who are tagging themselves as, or rather, trainers who are tagging themselves or thinking they're doing behavior mod, when they're simply relying on obedience, and they have no idea how to change the brain function.
Yeah.
From toxic to quiet, or from excited to quiet, or quiet to excited. They have no idea about dendrites and limbic brain, and they have no idea about serotonin and oxytocin and creating a dopamine addict and all that kind of stuff. And so I think a lot of people get stuck in this trap where they have a situation like we have with this black lab, and the people are putting a ton of obedience there. And it's not necessarily that obedience is bad. I think it's a good gateway to something. It's a good platform, a base, if you want, an ingredient in the mix. But for me, I don't necessarily want a dog on place, or on bed, or in a sit, or in a down, who's like, come on,
Yeah.
come on, let's do something. That's not, like, for me, that's not okay. Only because, great, you're holding his. Now, I mean, got a cramp. Sorry, I got a cramp. We could probably go.
What just happened there? Jay just malfunctioned
I just got this
massively.
Cramp in my hip. It's like, oh yeah. See, so we could probably go down a bunch of avenues.
Rabbit
just
holes.
With.
Did you say
Pardon?
rabbit holes? Did you say rabbit holes again?
I did.
You know what you have to do.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought, but I understand that when people come in, there's a way to interact with your dog. I don't think necessarily asking the dog to sit is bad in and of itself. It's that I think the dog has to understand to sit quietly.
Yeah.
Quietly.
And to me, though, you give them, if they're in that state of mind and you give them that sit, you're going to have to wait a while. You might be able to cue the position. And then they go, oh, I know this one. But you're still going to have to wait there for them to go, oh, right, I'm sitting. Okay, now I'm with you.
Yeah, you touch base a lot on the state of mind there, Jess and Jay as well. I think energy-wise on the handler part is really important, right? And when I say ignore the dog, I say it in a way that my energy is calm. My energy is not, I'm not in a high state that I'm going to be enforcing the behaviors off these dogs. So when I come in, I'll ignore. But once I see the dog's in a calm state of mind, relax, the mind has come down, then maybe I might throw in some obedience, sit, reward that behavior when they're in that state of mind.
Mm-hmm. So do we have any other viewer responses there, Tash, that we can address before we close up for the Easter day?
We had Monique. I didn't see it come through. If you have a pee issue, I agree. If you must put them out right away, do it calmly. But I would also add not to talk to them at all. Talking to them, even if you are calm, will trigger their excitement and could cause them to pee.
So, I mean, that's kind of going right back to what we were just talking about. And like, yes, sometimes you got to get it done. And so when you have to get it done and you know your dog's not in a fantastic state of mind, and pretty much anything you add in is going to bring them up one level, you just don't add it in. And so I think it's a really good practice for people to get into, being parallel to their dog and not necessarily adding stuff. And it's hard. because we are primates by nature. We do a lot of stuff with our hands. We do a lot of stuff with our voice. We have very expressive faces. And dogs are reading all of those things. And so even your body movement, like if you're going, okay, I'm going to get you there. Come on, buddy. I got you. Like you're already like way over the top, So dogs are experts at reading our body language. And typically, I'm not saying everybody, but typically humans are pretty shitty at reading theirs. So, so it's an uneven scale. So I guess even for my intention of doing these lives is to try and even that out a little bit so that you might be on a better playing field. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to that.
Well, maybe we can touch on just a couple of more minutes and not necessarily leave people in limbo who might be struggling here, where their dog is, sort of do a summary of what they can do, both for getting back the skill of crating and helping them to not feel guilty, but also what they can do if they're experiencing this sort of thing at the door. Sort of a quick, how can you address this in a way that's productive before we sign off?
You want to go first, Tash?
Yeah. What do you?
Well, let you touch base at the door. What I was just going to say in terms of getting back to the video and what we've been, trying to say for the people that are, we're all in isolation right now, but don't feel guilty. That's my biggest thing, and I've told that to my clients. Don't feel guilty. Use that crate. Use the baby gate. Use the door. Continue implementing some sort of routine so your dog doesn't start all these behavioral issues we're talking about when you go back to work, right? So, have them an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it may be during the day, so you can continue building that independence in your dog. So that would be a big thing for me, especially right now since we're all at home, right? Don't feel guilty. Bottom line, let your dog be independent, put them away, continue building their solitude.
That's great.
And I'll let you touch base at the door for sure.
Yes.
For me, I think the resounding message, I echo Tash's sentiments. I also want to add in that for these dogs, they're also going through a change, and I want people to be cognizant and aware of what that change may be, and maybe aware of how and what we are doing to maybe make it worse or better. So similar along the lines of don't feel guilty, do it. I recommend to my clients that you confine your dogs for periods of time when you're home. I usually say about 3 times a day. So periods of time when you're home, and everybody says, well, for how long? And I'm like, well, until they're calm. They need to get through that. And I think it's really important to also say it doesn't have to be a tough love thing. I have 4 teenagers. We've made their rooms the way that they like them. We've given them stuff in their rooms that they like. We've given them a place where they can go and spend time. They go there voluntarily sometimes. So this is not about like tough on you. You have to be by yourself. You might want to start thinking about ordering some of those special bones that they like, or stuffing some interesting comics and putting them in the freezer. Finding more creative ways to feed them their food so that they can do that independent activity. That it's an activity you do every day. Maybe they're munching their food down in 5 minutes. That could be a 1-hour exercise in solitude, as well as problem solving and everything else. So I think we need to get a little creative about that. And this week, I know with my fellow geeks, we're going to be posting some things on our page that can hopefully give you some ideas. And it probably necessitates us doing another live specifically about some of these activities and games and crate exercises and things like that.
Yeah, and I think for me, I echo what you guys are suggesting here. I come at it maybe slightly differently as I want to remove myself out of the picture and look at everything objectively that what I'm doing, specifically either with a client dog or my dogs in general, and go, what is it in my routine that is either adding something that I don't want or adding something that is good, and what do I need to shift around? So maybe that's the way that just looking at what the human element, looking at what the client and what we're doing that could be cueing a behavior or creating a situation that isn't good. And by isn't good, I mean there's several different avenues we can go down there. But for me, I think a lot of people will go on YouTube and they're going to search how to make your dog stop jumping or how to cure separation anxiety. And a lot of the thing they're going to go to is probably find that they're going to have to tell the dog unambiguously, no, you can't do that. And I guess what I'm getting at is it's going to be an automatic go-to is punishment. And for me, when I look at the whole picture, I'm like, okay, well, how much exercise, physical exercise, is your dog getting? And that's not the cure and the be-all. That's not the be-all and the end-all to stuff. How much physical exercise is your dog doing? So I have 3 German Shepherds. Am I giving them, am I providing an outlet for them to drain that energy so that it doesn't turn into something dumb? They're not using it in a very unproductive way. Second is, for me, what are you doing in terms of mental stimulation and mental fulfillment? And, whether that's an indoor game, a Kong filled with peanut butter, putting food in a snuffle mat, making your own puzzles, whether it's that, or I did a short live this morning to maybe hopefully put a couple of smiles on people's faces. I had 5 of my 6 out in the cornfields, just running amok. And I don't care what they do. I basically just care that they don't run off and they listen to when I say come. You can eat an old piece of, I don't care what you do. Sniff, rub yourself in some dead animal that's over there. I mean, I don't love that, but hey, that's what dogs do. And so,
and I think, Jay, we talked about also, like, we're going to need to help to, I think a lot of viewers, please pipe in and make your comments, but I think a lot of viewers are looking for exactly that. So what can I do? Yeah. I live in the city versus I live in the country. What can I do? I live in an apartment versus I live in a house with a yard. So I think that I think it will be prudent of us to start to give some advice on how we actually do that mental, physical combination of stimulation and outlets to create balance at the ground level before trying to address and attack some of these problem behaviors.
And that's where I'm going. It's like when we look at the whole picture, it's like what levels of fulfillment or engagement or, what satisfaction are you giving the dog mentally and physically before you're leaving the house or during the day? What solitude time are you giving them? Are you keeping in place? Like, you look at all of the bits and go, okay, I would implement this or I would implement that, coming in and out of the door. For me, coming in and out of the door, a lot of times, I think what people can do is not get handsy. Oh, down, don't do that, down. And I understand that the dog is jumping all over you, but if people have the end result in their head and reverse engineer the steps.
No monkey arms. No monkey arms. That's what I always tell clients. No monkey arms.
Well, whatever. No monkey arms. Hey, look, it's, this is probably, I don't want to cause us any grief or nothing, but there's a particular guy who is very, very popular, and he had a catchphrase, and it was no touch, no talk, no eye contact. And I think that goes a long way still to this day in terms of addressing some of the behaviors that are at the door. So for me, when people come in, they can, Jess, you said body blocking. And that's basically you not using your hands, but using your whole body and the energy that you have to push the dog. And you've got that lingo down, it's super polished, to push the dog out of your space and just kind of go, okay, this is something we're going to start doing from now on, and work through those little bits. So I look at all of the stuff, the big picture, fulfillment, physical, emotional, physical, emotional, psychological. What's the dog doing? Solitude, what's happening here? And then I think that people can start addressing some of those behaviors at the door where they're looking at, okay, did I just watch the dog grab your keys? How does the dog feel about that?
Right.
Watch the dog put your coat on.
Mhm.
And then once you identify this, like where that is in the reel, in the movie, it's like, that's something I need to work on there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I think that you've brought up a bunch of things that I think would be things we should definitely talk about in more detail in further lives too, because the body blocking, the mental stimulation, and all of those things, physical exercise. So I think this brings on some really great topics. I would encourage any viewers who have videos of their dogs either interacting in games, mental exercise, physical exercise that they find to be beneficial for their dog throughout this period of time. Please send us your videos. If you have dogs who are demonstrating problematic behaviors related to the self-isolation, related to a lack of routine and structure, please send us your videos. This is definitely a topic we need to cover in more detail as we move forward through this self-isolation period. And I wanted to also let everybody know we will be doing a special live on Wednesday with a special guest. We will be posting about that. So Wednesday we'll be doing a live at 7 p.m. and we will be posting about that. Please send us your questions, and thank you so much, and a happy Easter to everybody from everybody on the Geeks panel. And please, interact with us, engage with us. We are here to help. We want to try and make that human animal bond a little bit easier, and the language a little bit easier to dissect and decode. So happy Easter, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Happy Easter. Bye.